Hey guys, my name is Shai and this is Evermind Astro. This video is about Taurus rising, right? The ascendant in Taurus. So the one thing I really want to emphasize here, that I'm going to be emphasizing in every single one of these videos, is my personal interpretation of the rising sign is that this is how you interact with the world. Particularly how you interact with people when you first meet them kind of out in the world, or, acquaintances or kind of friends who you're not super, super close with, right? How you interact with the world, how you interact with unfamiliar situations, how you interface with unfamiliar reality, right? It's this interactive zone of your chart. So, Taurus rising, I can feel the Taurus energy coming in, right? It's steady, right? It's steady. Yes, it can be stubborn. It is this earth, steady, steady earth energy. So when people first meet you, Taurus rising, they have this, I don't know if you could notice the energy when I just did the Aries rising video, and that got my energy really fired up. And so now tuning into your guys' energy, it's like this calming down to earth, this steadying, feet like boots on the ground type of energy. And you have that effect on people, right? You have that effect on people because that is how you present yourself to the world. So really depending on your the rest of your chart, right? Especially your sun and your moon, that might surprise you, right? Like if you happen to be, I don't know, Cancer sun, Scorpio moon type of person, which that's a lot of chaos and emotionality and volatility. And then if you happen to be Taurus rising, you might be really surprised to find that people see you as someone who's very stable. And that could you could be like, what? Because my inner landscape is so tumultuous, but you present very stable. On the other hand, if you happen to have I don't know, Virgo or Aquarius, Leo, Capricorn, some of those more steady, more static type of energies in your chart, then this will make more sense to you, right? So I just wanted to point that out. The rising sign doesn't necessarily match the rest of your energy, right? But it is how people see you, and how people see you can sometimes surprise you. So Taurus rising tends to, I think, value this consistent approach, right? To value this consistent approach. Kind of a funny example, but when you're driving and you're in kind of a dodgy situation, and it's like, what are they doing? And what is the other driver doing? And they don't know what you're doing. And so sometimes the best thing that you can do when you're driving is to just be predictable, right? So that the other drivers know what you're doing. Like even if you're doing something that might be, not quite following the rules of the road, sometimes it is better to just simply be predictable so that they know where you're going and they can account for what you're doing, right? It's this feeling of predictability can prevent an accident, right? When you're driving. That's kind of the thing with Taurus rising is predictability. You feel like if you present a predictable facade, or if you simply project your own inner steadfastness, if you project that outwards to others, you have this kind of intuition that is going to be good for you, and it's going to be good for everyone, right? You want to project stability and consistency, right? Especially with Taurus, there's always this thing, it's about duration over time, right? Enduring through stuff. So you actually could really approach life challenges, especially in terms of I don't know, maybe you have to go to some kind of family reunion, especially if it's like a family reunion with your in-laws, or some kind of business meeting or something like that. Like if you ever had to go on a business retreat for work, something like that, you'd be like, okay, this is just something I have to endure. I'm just going to persevere through this. And you see that as kind of your way through, right? You see that as your way through. You're just going to be, you can be a little bit stoic, but of course Taurus energy can be right. It can be very loving and exuberant, and you can really feel euphoria kind of sometimes coming off of Taurus. But you're going to navigate the world by trying to like thread the needle, right? Like thread the needle. You're like, if I just continue, everything's going to be fine, right? Everything's going to be fine. If I just continue and just be the same and just continue on, that is how I can navigate this situation. That is how I can persevere through this problem. And you could really actually find yourself taking on a lot of burdens, because Taurus can really, really carry a burden, right? If there are two energies in the zodiac that I would say carry the burdens, like carry them. Other energies absorb burdens in different ways, but carrying the burden, like physically carrying it, it'd be Taurus and Capricorn, right? So Taurus, you can carry the burden, and you might often find yourself getting into a situation and then taking on all of the burdens because you see that other people can't, or it's like they don't seem to be taking responsibility or carrying the burdens, and you go, no one is carrying all of this stuff, I'm going to pick it up and carry it with me. I mean, that could be physically, right? If you're helping someone move or something, you could end up literally carrying a bunch of stuff. But I mean this also just energetically, emotionally, mentally, in terms of stress, right? You could find yourself just accidentally, naturally, like taking on all of these extra burdens because you feel like that is your way through. And if you've noticed, I keep saying getting through, that is also part of this Taurus rising vibe here, wanting to get through. So that's where we get to the whole, the old big cliche about Taurus being stubborn. Yeah, Taurus is stubborn. It's true, guys. Not all Tauruses, not all of the time, but that energy of this stubbornness is definitely here. So I think a kind of challenge that Taurus rising can kind of bump into, because as you go through your life, your rising sign like brings you a lot of lessons, because it's how you bump up against the world, right? It's how you bump up against the world, and eventually you kind of get sick of bumping up against the world, right? And you start to wonder, am I causing this? Is my behavior somehow making my life more difficult? And so every rising sign is going to have their own lessons with that. With Taurus, when you're going to kind of go, is my stubbornness making my life more difficult? Is my unwillingness to change my presentation making my life more difficult? Yeah, it might be. And so the Taurus approach would actually be to just ignore that and just to continue on, right? To continue on. And there is validity to that approach. This is one of those things that sounds crazy when you say it, but I think it's actually Taurus knowledge, right? This is Taurus knowledge. There are some problems that even if they're big problems, if you ignore them hard enough, and if you ignore them long enough, and long enough might be like 50 years, okay? But if there are some problems that if you can ignore them hard enough and long enough by like sticking your head in the sand and just persevering, they will eventually go away. That is just that is kind of a knowledge that Taurus has, because Taurus knows about the cycles of life, right? It's the life cycle of the planet. It's Earth energy. So you guys know that if you ignore something for long enough and just persevere, the problem will eventually go away. So that is a valid approach, and that's the kind of thing that all of the other energies will argue with you about. But that is Taurus wisdom. Do your own thing, stay in your own lane, persevere, and wait for the problem to go away, even if it takes decades. But of course, if you decide to, for whatever reason, maybe you're tuning into some other energy in your chart, because you're not in your rising energy all the time, right? You're in your sun sign or your moon sign energy most of the time. Your rising energy is more present when you're interacting with people. So, of course, if you have a lifestyle where you're interacting with people constantly all of the time, right? If you're more outgoing, if you're more extroverted, if you work with the public, right, then you're going to be in your rising energy more often. So you might find yourself going, okay, do I want to learn this lesson, right? Do I want to learn the lesson of being less stubborn or being more flexible in how I interact with people? Do I want to change my presentation, right? Do I want to change how I'm interacting with the world? You might not want to, and you might never do that. But if you do want to, this is the thing with Taurus, is that change is not death, okay? Change is not death, because Taurus tends to see any type of change as death, And Taurus doesn't like death. Taurus doesn't like change, right? None of that. But what Taurus, if you want to learn this lesson, it's that change is not death, and change is not threatening, and change is not bad, right? So this is like, a Taurus rising person might have the same haircut forever, right? Or wear the same type of clothes forever because that's just what works. It makes sense. They're comfortable in it. They might not want to change their presentation, right? But it's okay to one day like go outside, like wearing full tie-dye, like, like wearing some kind of really flamboyant or outgoing outfit, or dyeing your hair bright pink, or, getting a mohawk, right? Shaving half of your head, right? Doing something crazy like that, is not typically what Taurus rising is going to want to do, but you might find at some point in your life that you might want to mix things up and you might want to change things. And then you could explore, how does changing your approach with the world, how does that actually make your life easier? And how does that bring you different life experiences? It's interesting because we all at some point in our lives learn to kind of modulate our rising energy, right? Modulate our rising energy. Yeah, like I'm Scorpio rising, and I have had to learn to like tone that down like a lot, right? Like a lot. So that's why I say this, right? We can learn to modulate our rising energy. So for Taurus, if you want to learn to modulate your rising energy to make your life easier and more pleasant for you, right? It would be to allow yourself to change, allow yourself to be more fluid and flexible with how you interact with people, and maybe to sometimes put down the burdens and to just stop. Right? To just stop. You don't need to keep continuing on. Sometimes you can stop and you can change directions and you can be more flexible. So, let me think. Anything else about Taurus rising? I think that's pretty much what I want to say for this video, guys. So, if you want, you can check me out in the description box. I have all kinds of links to my other YouTube channel, my website, my Etsy shop. I have a newsletter. If you're into astrology, right, and you want astro updates about all the transits, I send out 2 emails a month. You can sign up for my newsletter. So you can find me all over the internet, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.